Silicon Valley is built on trust. Investors trust founders. Founders promise innovation. And billions of dollars move on belief alone. But sometimes, that belief is carefully engineered. This is the story of a CEO who convinced some of the smartest investors in the world to believe in something that was indeed real. The CEO looked perfect on paper. Confident speeches, visionary interviews, and a mission that sounded absolutely world-changing. Every presentation was polished to a mirror shine. Every demo looked convincing, flawless, even. The team appeared dedicated, the offices buzzed with energy, and the branding was impeccable. The CEO wasn't just selling a product. They were selling an image, a feeling, a movement. What investors saw was not a product, it was a story. And in the high-stakes world of venture capital, stories often sell better than cold, hard facts. They weren't just investing in a company. They were investing in a narrative they desperately wanted to be true. They pictured themselves on the ground floor of the next global phenomenon, and that vision was powerful. The CEO mastered this art, crafting a legend that was almost impossible to resist. So why did some of the sharpest minds in finance say yes? It comes down to one of the most powerful forces in Silicon Valley: FOMO, the fear of missing out. The fear of passing on the next Google, the next Facebook, is often stronger than the fear of losing money on a failed venture. So, when one famous, highly respected investor signed a check, it created a domino effect. Others didn't want to be the one who hesitated, the one who was left behind. They followed the leader, assuming the first investor had done their homework. Very few asked for independent verification or dug deep into the technical claims. They relied on social proof. In the fast-paced world of Silicon Valley, momentum can often replace due diligence. The pressure to get in on a hot deal can cloud judgment and make people skip the critical questions they should be asking. The herd mentality took over, and with each new investor, the company's valuation and its illusion of legitimacy grew stronger. The CEO's playbook was a masterclass in control. They managed the flow of information with surgical precision. Access to the CEO was limited, creating an aura of importance and mystique. Inside the company, employees were siloed, divided into teams that couldn't share information with one another. This prevented anyone from piecing together the full picture of what was or wasn't happening. If an engineer or a manager dared to question the unrealistic results or raise a red flag, they were swiftly marginalized. They were labeled as not a team player, lacking vision, or disruptive. This created a culture of fear where silence was rewarded and critical thinking was punished. The illusion of success was the company's most valuable asset, and it was protected at all costs, even if it meant silencing the very people who knew the truth. So what was really happening behind the polished presentations and confident smiles? The technology was a disaster. It struggled to perform basic functions, and in some cases, it didn't exist at all. Internal reports, hidden from investors, showed a trail of failures, missed milestones, and insurmountable technical hurdles. Deadlines were quietly pushed back or simply ignored. But instead of pausing to fix the fundamental problems with the product, the company's leadership did the opposite. They doubled down on public relations and fundraising. The strategy was simple. More money meant more time, and more time meant they could keep the belief alive a little longer. The focus shifted from building a real product to building a perception of progress. A dangerous game where the only goal was to survive until the next funding round. There were so many warning signs, but they were consistently ignored. Experienced engineers, the ones tasked with actually building the technology, raised serious concerns in internal meetings. Some even quit in protest. Outside advisors, brought in for their industry expertise, warned the leadership that their claims were impossible and that they were heading for a cliff. But the story of success being sold to the outside world was just too convenient, too profitable. For investors, the truth was an unwelcome distraction. They trusted the CEO's unshakable confidence more than the worrying data. They saw the positive press, the rising valuation, and they chose to believe. It was easier to believe in the charismatic leader than to confront the uncomfortable reality that their multi-million-dollar investment might be built on a foundation of lies. Eventually, the pressure became too much to contain. The illusion started to crack. A major publication began an investigation. Regulators started asking pointed questions about the company's claims. Business partners, who had been promised a revolutionary technology, demanded proof that it actually worked. Once the harsh spotlight of serious scrutiny was turned on the company, the whole carefully constructed facade collapsed with shocking speed. The CEO's charisma couldn't deflect direct questions about technical failures. The siloed teams couldn't hide the lack of a functioning product anymore. What investors and the public thought was groundbreaking innovation was revealed to be little more than slick marketing, stage magic, and PowerPoint presentations. The aftermath was brutal and swift. The company, once valued at billions, failed spectacularly. Reputations that took decades to build were damaged, perhaps permanently. Talented employees who had poured their hearts into the company saw their careers derailed, and their stock options become worthless. And the money, hundreds of millions of dollars from investors, simply disappeared. The CEO, who once graced the covers of magazines and inspired entire auditoriums with their vision, now actively avoided cameras and public appearances. The story serves as a stark reminder that trust, especially in business, is a fragile thing. Once broken, it never fully returns. The scars of this failure would linger in the valley for years. This story reveals a hard and sometimes inconvenient truth about startup culture and maybe human nature itself. Confidence can easily be mistaken for competence. A compelling story can feel more real than objective evidence. And when our deep-seated belief in a vision replaces the need for proof, even the smartest, most experienced people in the world can be fooled. It's a lesson that every founder, every investor, and every one of us should remember. Thank you for watching.